Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today it is time to turn in some of the new divination cards that were added in patch 3.20. This is going to be Auspicious Ambitions, a divination card that grants an experimented item that is one of the highest exclusive bases. If you're really lucky, you might get a Pneumatic Dagger or a heat-attuned Tower Shield. If you're really unlucky, well, there's a few stinkers in there too. These are going to be item level 100 and double influenced. This divination card is widely believed to drop from all 7 Uber bosses, although this is not absolutely confirmed yet. And just like any other divination cards that come from very tough bosses, on day 2 of a league, the vast majority of the ones that are on the market come from stacked decks. There's a lot of these going around and they're mostly coming from stacked decks. Anyways, let's talk to Lily and see what we get here and discuss whether there's any merit to any of these turn-ins. So, we have an Apex Cleaver, which is one of the worst bases. This is Redeemer and Hunter influenced. This is just one of the worst of the bases. I said there's a few stinkers. This is one of them. This is Mediocrity Incarnate. Yes, it can get a lot of quality on it. That generally doesn't matter very much, and ultimately, it doesn't have enough base damage to be worth using. This Apex Cleaver is going to probably end up being completely unsold. Fortunately, I only wasted 14 chaos on that one. Here we got an Anarchic Spiritblade, which is an excellent base. This is a top tier base. This one is Elder influenced and Warlord influenced. That's a good combination of influences for rolling combinations of physical mods on this, and this is what I would consider a pretty good crafting base. This item is functionally equivalent to a purely Warlord influenced Anarchic Spiritblade for one very powerful crafting method. This is a method that I learnt from streamer and YouTuber Alishar, and the way that it works is that you start with a rare item that has been crafted using essences and annulment orbs so that it has exactly one prefix and exactly one suffix, and these are extraordinarily powerful ones. One example here could be Deafening Essence of Zeal suffix in conjunction with Flaring as a prefix. And that's quite expensive to roll. This is not a budget crafting method. Once you've got that starting point, it's time to sink 6 Divine Orbs into it. Multi-mod the item, prefixes can't change, suffixes can't change. Now you go and harvest Reforged Speed, and the only thing that can possibly roll is a Warlord exclusive influence mod that grants hybrid physical damage % and increased attack speed. Now do be aware that this is the swords version of it, the non-thrusting one-handed swords version, and it is different for some weapons and some weapon bases it can't be done. But this crafting method is really solid and will create a very powerful weapon, but there's not many people that can afford to do that at the moment. Later in the league, however, this is definitely something that will be used in conjunction with that Warlord method to create a monster of an Anarchic Spiritblade for someone. This is definitely worth more than the input cards, and possibly this makes up for the whole price that was spent. I spent a total of 62 chaos buying all these cards. I do think they'll probably go up over time, but that'll be because of people doing gambling, not because they're particularly valuable. A Pneumatic Dagger, huge hit. The fact that it's Hunter and Warlord doesn't really matter because most ways of rolling these don't use influence mods. Yet, this is extraordinary. This is what you want to see, and we've done really well there. One more, Solarine Bow. Crusader influence has a few useful things for bows. Redeemer influence doesn't. This is going to be hard to roll. It's not a bad base type. It's a solid but not extraordinary base. There are niche use cases for it, and I'm happy enough to see this. This is probably going to sell to someone for at least the cost I paid for it, especially if I do a little bit of crafting around with it. Okay, so let's talk the utility of this bow because this is going to be a complex one. Here, this is a bow that is perfect for exactly one build, and that is fire-based elemental hit. This is a pretty niche build, but it definitely does exist, and there are people that play it. So the way you would roll this, you're going to want to get +2 to the level of all socketed bow gems, +1 to the level of all socketed gems, some sort of attack speed roll, and if you're really lucky, one of the Crusader influence pool mods that causes your damage to project better. This is either a bow projectiles chain or bow projectiles fork. You're going to roll this probably using fossils in order to constrain the available mods. There is a combination of fossils that makes it very likely to get +2 and +1 on the same bow. And then once you've done that, if you've got an empty suffix and an empty prefix, you're in an interesting position where you can put on cannot roll attack mods, which cost a Divine Orb, then apply an Exalted Orb to the item. The only eligible things you can get are some very good influence mods. So I'll keep that in mind, and that's something I might end up doing on stream later. Lucky last, I didn't even realize that you could get belts from this, but of course you can. Okay, so we've got a Hunter and Elder Influence Micro Distillery belt. Hunter Influenced and Elder Influence both scream at me, roll this with Pristine Fossil trying to get life on it, and also roll it with Resist. And if you do this, maybe this will be perfect for someone that is using the Trader setup, and in that case, it might sell to someone like that. That's going to be a pretty narrow niche, but I do think there might be a use case for this out there. This one's going to not be any good until it's crafted, and this is definitely the sort of thing you would put 4 Prismatic Catalysts on, before you attempted to craft it. Even though Fertile Catalyst play to the strengths of the Elder Influence and the Hunter Influence better, the Resist mods are more common and generally speaking more powerful than the Life mods here. That said, this is probably at least a break even on the set. Anyways, that's a fun divination card set. Something to play around with a little bit, give yourself a few crafting puzzles to work with. Pneumatic Dagger is the big hit. This is sort of one of the best outcomes you could get. This would have been better if it was Elder influenced. Now, one thing I do want to try with this, I'm actually not sure if this works. Can this be used with the Harvest craft that changes the influences on an item? Can I change this to Elder plus something else with that? I've actually never tried it on a double influenced item, so I don't know if that'll work or not, but that's something I will figure out and I will learn. May your ambitions be auspicious.